everyone. Hi, you enjoy it? Yes. It's my third year here at Construction Technology Festival. And I have the pleasure to moderate this panel with these amazing thought leaders in the industry. In probably one of his most controversial topic, I would say. I certainly I moderate and share a lot of conferences around the world, and we can certainly see that this year it's all about AI. Pretty much it's the main theme of the conference. Everyone is talking about, everyone is, sort of, introduced a lot of fears on what is really going to bring to our industry. And we can't deny that we are the least digitized industry in our society, and we do have some digitalization challenges. But there is a lot that we can do, and there is a lot that AI can do to our industry. So for this panel, we are going to keep it real, okay? So no soft talk, no fluffy stuff. We keep it real. We're all here to learn from each other. We all try to understand how to implement AI in a realistic way, in our processes. So please scan the QR code here and ask the toughest questions that you really would like to get answers today. Yes, I will direct it to the right person. So I would like to start the conversation with Andy. Okay? So, Andy, I would say let's start from maybe the simple or the most, applicable, use cases for AI, right? I know you work a lot in early concept design, a lot of visualizations. And can you please bring us, and share your experiences on implementing successfully AI in this early stage of our life cycle?
Hey, thank you very much. Yes, indeed I can. And I will stick to the topic. What is real in AI? Since last summer, really, we have been using it in the office on real projects with real savings. Some are quantifiable, some less so. As you mentioned, we do a lot of the early stage front-end concept design, which is sort of feasibility studies, not just a number crunching about areas and costs, but it's actually a lot of it visually when a client has land and they've got ideas what might be on it, and we were selling to the stakeholders or investors, what does it look like to have a hotel resort in this place or something else. So using the generative AI image generators in this scenario is very, very helpful, because accuracy is not so important, but getting across a motive, selling images quickly is very useful. And I can give one example, probably familiar to anybody in this region. Get a phone call, I need a report in 3 days showing 6 buildings on a site for a kind of landscape, entertainment, sports project. Normally it would take 2 or 3 weeks to do a kind of feasibility vision study with images, because we sketch it, conceive it, model it, render it, put in a report. We're able to do it in a week using AI image generation in this case. The other way is on more real projects, once we've modeled it, and you've got your in-house Rhino, Revit model, whatever, making pretty good computer game level images, there's AI tools out there, get very cheap, $10, $20 a month, that will turn your good image into professional quality image in really a few minutes. So again, you're short-circuiting a process which would cost perhaps $500 to $1,000 per image, several days at least, up to a week, into something which is really 5-10 minutes. And you just need to learn. I taught myself a few videos and a bit of playing quite quickly how to do this. The third way, I'm talking later actually in more detailed images, that might make this clearer. The text side is also very useful for bidding and things, but I'll stick just to images in this introduction. The third way, which is probably can't really quantify, is as a creative assistant and how it changes your creative process. And it's just so different that there's somebody to explore with. It's not somebody, it's an AI. There's a tool to explore ideas with. I can give one example. About 6 years ago, I was looking at doing a master's back in London, exploring digital fabrication and what that would mean for facades and the look of architecture. And I would have spent, that was a year probably modeling things and playing and things. I can now do that work in really a few days, because it's so good at generating images based on, so if you conceive something, and it's not just the crazy stuff you see online. It can be very practical things. So a facade which is kind of Art Deco but contemporary, if you know how to use the words, you can kind of create visually quickly something that you imagined, which before might have taken you days. And once you get to the city scale, you can make an image of what you're trying to communicate, again, so quickly that might have taken a whole team a week or two to do. So this is kind of disrupting our whole process to thinking and being creative. And that's harder to quantify. It's just changing the way we think creatively and do our design process.
So do you think that in this case, the AI is definitely obviously bringing a lot of improvements, in the early stage process where a lot of the resources are really allocated for that, purpose? Do you think it's removing some of the more traditional jobs in that phase? Do you think we should fear about, or we should just implement, AI for early stage visualization as a whole?
Well, when I started working, I was doing lots of 2D drawings in Bentley MicroStation. They have a stand here. Plans and elevations, you have to make sure they line up. It was a very slow, tedious process. It wasn't that much fun, even with headphones on. BIM disrupted that and made that much more efficient. So I think if there's a tool out there which makes things more efficient and productive, of course it's going to be used. You just have to use it well and do tend to rearrange. But it is true that the rendering process has taken away a job that took time. Oh. But it might mean there's just more buildings. There's better design. You're just kind of readjusting the resources and values in your system.
So we're seeing a transition. And Roger, earlier we saw obviously some of your work across the entire life cycle. Do you see similar, application or improvements in terms of, productivity, efficiency across the life cycle? What are the use cases that you really see AI really now taking shape?
Absolutely. There are a lot of applications. I would start by saying that as the CTO responsible for the security and well-being of the company, let's say, we're using AI in a lot of different ways. So from a cybersecurity perspective, we get 100,000 attacks a day, and it's bot against bot, attacker, defender. It's like a virtual war that's happening on the boundaries of each business these days. So if you're not using AI to defend, you're going to be attacked. And we're using also from a GPT perspective, we rolled it out from an enterprise training and licensing and everything, and in our applications across the suite. But to your point, the thing I'm really excited about is how AI is being used to kind of change shift the entire paradigm of the construction lifecycle, the real estate lifecycle. So if I start at a macro data perspective, because data is really the important thing here, how we process the data. And you look at you're developing a community, there's a lot of applications now that geospatial applications, different applications as you're planning the community that will look at the last 50 years of weather, sun, wind direction, rain, and help you master plan that community in a very quick and efficient way for sustainability, for the throughput of people through the community, so on and so forth. And also this spatial digital twin, we'll call it, is used for retrofitting. So we're seeing different developers are mapping out the entire, let's say, Dubai, Abu Dhabi. They're looking at previous facilities that were there, that were built before BIM, before any of these other technologies. And they're using these to do a BIM after the fact, and they're able to retrofit to meet guidelines, sustainability guidelines, and things of that nature. So at a high level, a spatial twin is really important. Then you go to the design. We talked a little bit about design earlier, as far as how AI is disrupting design. Cycle time, when you're building a stadium, the last two companies I was with, we built stadiums in Australia and then in the UK. AI can look at all the stadiums that have been built in the past 100 years, even go back to the Coliseum, do an after-the-fact digital twin. It can take your requirements and very quickly really narrow it down to the design you're going to be using for your stadium. Construction, we talked about how digital twin and AI are really important in reality capture and as built. From a construction twin perspective, reducing cycle time, eliminating carbon footprint. So there's a sustainable goal there also with digital twin in construction, as well as the data becomes narrower and narrower and more focused as you work through the life cycle. And as we get to the operate and maintain or facility management, it's connected to your building management system for quality of life, smart building, smart city, and applications like that. So really exciting how different startup companies, applications are utilizing digital twin and AI across the entire build real estate lifecycle for really, really sustainable and productive outcomes. And then, I think that those are the key points that I would say from AI and the construction and real estate development lifecycle.
So thank you, Roger. There is so obviously you touched on sustainability, and I think we're very lucky here to have Anas here on stage with us, who moderated our first initial panels, but also represents the UN and COP28. And I know that you did a lot of work, when it comes to sustainability and climate tech. So can you share with us how you are, you work on, now implementing, introducing, adopting AI for climate tech, technology, and for sustainability perspective?
Absolutely. Thanks for the question and have me on the panel. As mentioned, AI has been used quite widely, or could be used quite widely throughout the construction phase. From a UN perspective, now during the COP28, it was an opportunity for us to utilize AI. One of the main reasons is because it was a topic that everyone was talking about, and then during that time there was the launch of ChatGPT and etc. So we were looking at ways to figure out how we can use AI for different things that we're doing. Now, as you probably know, UN mainly focuses on sustainability and certain challenges that we have across the world. Especially when it came to COP, it was all to do with climate change and environment. And how can we utilize certain data to help us to A, understand what's going on, B, visualize them as much as possible and come up with different ways to visualize them, but more importantly, come up with solutions and ideas. So pretty much when I say AI was used for every single one of them. So AI was utilized for gathering data, crunching up the data, analyzing what the data is and what it is that we are facing around the world. The other thing we looked at in terms of utilizing AI, especially from the construction industry, is where the problems are and what's the root causes of these issues. As you can imagine, there's a lot of data being crunched. So there's a lot of data coming up from satellites, a lot of data coming in from IoT sensors, a lot of data coming from partners. So we had a lot of partners that were providing us with data, whether it's a partner all the way from someone who's in a construction site, collecting information about waste and construction material and etc. People in facility management operation about the carbon emission from their buildings, and the list goes on. So there's a whole lot of partners that were allowing us to get the data. But we won't be able to do any of this without relying quite heavily on the ventures. So we worked very closely with a number of ventures. Some of you might be aware of some of the startups that we started to invest in to make sure that they can come in at a UN level to make sure that they can actually provide realistic, sustainable solutions. And when I say sustainability, I mean continued and something that can continue for years to come. So yeah, these are the main uses that we used it for, but obviously AI could be used way more and beyond from there. However, because that was the first time we utilized AI, we wanted to make sure that we utilize it for data management, coming up with analysis, and also coming up with a few scenarios. But then I think in the coming years, AI will be used a lot more than that.
As we produce more data, when you try to make more sense of it.
As we produce more intelligent data.
Yes. Which is interesting. And I really like, because Roger earlier, explained in this presentation the importance of also new technology. I think you gave us stats on how many new technologies we have and new startups we have in the AI space, So what is the stat? How many new AI technology we have, startups we have now in the space? It's
a lot more than fintech. So for the first time, the real estate life cycle has more startups, AI startups, than fintech. So a huge investment. There are thousands of companies with really innovative ideas.
But as we have more companies, obviously we also have a lot more challenges, and also with Bisam, mentioned earlier, upskilling, supply chain. I think where I'm going, Anastasios. I think they're the best person to start talking about some of the challenges and how we tackle them. Also, keep sending your questions. We actually, not surprisingly, we have a very long list of questions. So I'm just going to finish the round of questionings, and then I'm going to start asking the questions that the audience sent. So, Anastasios, how do we solve the problems of skilling of our supply chains? How are you educating? How are you tackling the challenge? How are you selecting the supply chain? Are you now selecting in a different way? Who you partner up with? Any tips for us and for our audience?
It's a very, very large question. All right, so I'll try to answer. Obviously, like any new technology or process comes with the challenge of adoption, and you have to tackle it, from the triple P aspect. So you look at process, you look at people, you look at product or technology in this case. Starting with people, obviously, we're all trying to understand, even though machine learning is not something new, what the implications will be. That's the whole point of this conference today. And it all goes back, to building trust that someone external to a human process will be doing your job partially. And yes, your job will be changing. The human will be assisted by artificial intelligence, not replaced. That's the whole point of the process. So we start with first making sure we establish the training programs. We establish corporate governance on what AI means for design and construction as key stakeholders, who will drive, the interaction with the market, the vendors. It all goes down, to technology vendors, building the use cases. What are we getting back as it's part of the supply chain? What is our return on investment? And I will come back to that in a bit. But upskilling is continuous. It will have to have different flavors. We, as a market in UAE, started already investing heavily in coming up with the right language to talk corporate, and then talk, delivery, and talk securing jobs. Process, I think it will go back a lot to something that we quite always forget: contractual relationships. So how, again, we're gonna establish trust when we know, for example, in not a very distant future, that my contract with another important vendor would be negotiated through two large language models that talk to each other, and there is little human interaction, apart from maybe signing off as an SME. And how this contractual relationship will account for the fact that I'm using software to come up with, as Andy said, a design solution where I'm not really owning the software, but I'm the designer. So we've seen examples of good technology not flying because of a fight over IP, data ownership. So this is, again, an area for education and regulation. So that's I think one of the key challenges. And I think we all talked about data standards today. We all have to understand that, again, as part of the upskilling and training, ownership of data, and then the fact that all those language models or neural networks have been trained on data sets that follow structured data, unstructured data. We have to understand that we have to release ownership within this currently black box of information processing and deep learning. So again, we need to tackle this aspect that we are an actor within, this game, and not the absolute owner, if you like, of the process or the product. So I hope I was a bit clear about the training challenges.
Thank you. So one of the last points that we really need to touch, we cannot talk about AI unless adoption and implementation, unless we talk about return on investment. So everyone here is probably working on this challenge and trying to understand what's the real return on investment on adopting, AI. Myself, I'm a management consultant, write a lot of digital twins, and now these days is AI strategies and calculating those return on investment. I must admit, I still have not figured that out. So if anyone has any tips, please. But everyone is here, and probably has the same challenges. But I think the interesting point is not really is which metrics and we're going to really adopt to assess the AI return on investment. Is more what's the cost of not implementing and adopting AI. So, Jason, what is your point of view or controversial point of view on this topic?
So thank you. Thanks for having me again. So look, I think return on investment is, it takes me back to the days of marketing. And I remember I'm a CEO of a company, and I remember marketing is always like, it used to be the old topic. Like, what's the first thing that gets cut is marketing, because you can't measure it. And you can't manage what you can't measure. And I think we're in a world at the moment where AI is very similar. There are pockets that you can measure, but I think it's really the unwritten elements that add the value. And if you think about how how I think about return on investment is sort of 5 buckets. So the one is, does this have the ability to influence our customer value or our perceived customer value? Does this have the ability to give us better data insights or make better decisions on data? Does it help with a business process that perhaps could be automated? And is it going to create a digital awareness or a digital culture within the organization? And then is it going to spark some sort of innovation hub or technology that we didn't know about? And I think in each one of those, it's really hard to determine the success of each one of those. I'm a product of like spending millions of dollars on tech that was a complete flop. And everyone would say, implement this technology, it's going to make your business better. I think the reality is every business is unique, and every business needs to understand, what it is that they really have where they have a bottleneck within their business, and then figure out what technology is available to be able to solve that specific bottleneck. In this current world of AI, we're just fortunate that there's so many bottlenecks are down to efficiency and productivity that AI can solve a lot of them. Roger and Innovo, who I know quite well, I love what they're doing. They're a classic example of this, right? Where they were a construction business. I actually ran a workshop with them, and they've spun out like a technology business, right? So from a traditional construction business to a technology company. We were the same. We're an oil and gas services business, very technology, very traditional. And we started exploring with drones and technology and software and all sorts of tech, and we ended up building out our own technology business. So I would say that, each business just needs to really evaluate where those bottlenecks are, understand what is available out there to be able to solve them. And if you can reduce that and streamline that process, then you've got a return. The last use case that I'll give you for our businesses is that, when we started, we were an office of 3 in 2012. Today, we have over 5,000 people. We had revenues, way down in the single digits to 1.5 billion. And that scalability was impossible without adopting technology. It was impossible. The problem is we spent $10 million losing a whole bunch of money exploring tech, but actually the return, so if we just evaluated it purely on a return, we would say it was the worst decision we ever made. But the reality is going from the single to the 1.5 is a completely different value proposition that's been created. And that would have never happened had we not messed around with technology. So my simple word is, we use a phrase FAFO. I can't say it in this meeting, on this panel, but I'll say MAFO. So mess around and find out. And I think you've got to keep messing around with different technologies to see what sticks in your business and what creates the value in your business. And ultimately, you will then see a return, hopefully.
So we need to make mistakes.
Well, sometimes we win, sometimes we learn, but we never lose.
We need to fail, we need to fail fast. But I think, and this honestly leads perfectly in on to start taking some of the questions from our audience. We only really have 10 minutes. We have a very, very large number of questions, but one of the questions is, AI can perceive as young. It has immense amount of use cases. And the question to the panel is, who takes the liability if you make a mistake and the consequences? Who would like to take this one?
I'll just say blame the AI, right?
Well, do you think it's as easy as let's blame AI?
Is the question related to what happens if the data provided by AI is a mistake?
Well, the question is, who is responsible, for making mistakes? To be honest, should it not be the same as now, who is ever responsible? But then is also, some of the other points that we discussed recently, not to share earlier, rubbish in, rubbish out. So that's where the mistakes are made, right? Which obviously then it goes and follows, I guess, into the questions of data quality, consistent integrity, and we all know the challenges. So, I mean, do we have a different, maybe, different liability issues? I've certainly see, from my the clients I'm working with, some of the clients, they simply, their answers was, we're not taking liability. ChatGPT is not available. This is not available. This is not available. That's it. We're gonna assess. We're gonna evaluate, and then we're gonna tell you if you can be able to use it. Some others are a bit more, let's test this, let's fail, but who is responsible for it? What's your take?
I think in terms of responsibility, we'll do a double analysis. In terms of responsibility, this is why in our position we didn't want to rely on data, and then we didn't want to rely on AI just for the sake of relying on AI. So that's why we started with making sure that the right information is there, the right use cases that we wanted is there, and that's to start off with. So we make sure that we do take it step by step. But in terms of who takes the responsibility, it's the same as always. Technology is there, whether it's AI or non-AI, is technology to make us and help us to be better. I always say you don't lose your job to AI, you lose your job to someone who uses AI. So if someone uses AI and makes the wrong decision, you still have to blame that person. If we're playing a blame game, it's the same thing. This person just tend to use AI for their own good and for their own bad as well. So if they turn out to be wrong, then they're the ones who are still to be blamed, and the organization that use it still to be blamed, whether it's AI or not AI.
Do you agree, Anastasios?
Yeah, well, I think you're absolutely right. It's at the moment, again, it's the human, and I think it will be the human who will be essentially responsible for all decision making as the final approver. In the sense, we've all undergone and keep, going through due diligence with regards to what's happening, how all these, data sets, when queried, give back meaningful insights, responses. So they have been going through governance queries to make sure, that, yes, when we agree and we approve, we are more or less safe. So for the time being, it's the human. I think it will always be the case, but let's see.
I would say, I think if you submitted it, you own it.
Sorry?
If you submitted it, you own it.
Yeah.
And maybe your insurance may end up a new clause about AI, but I think it'll stay the same as now. If you're submitting something, you have ownership and liability for that. It's just, it's just tools. It's a different tool, whether it's Revit, CAD, hand drawing, or AI.
It to be the competent professionals to make those decisions.
So I feel like we're going through a rally here. We're not all meant to be answering this question, but to me, it's quite simple. If you're the CEO of the organization, you're responsible, right? And at the end of the day, you need it, and this is why it's so critical for you to understand what are the areas that really your AI is going to affect. And then don't allow AI to be in control of those processes that potentially have consequential effects. Right? You have to make sure that your people are trained. You need to make sure that there's risk mitigation in place. You need to make sure that there's barriers in place. I'll give you one simple example. Who here uses autopilot to record their meetings? Right? few people. So you take Autopilot, which is a very basic form, but it's recording your meetings, it's summarizing the minutes. We've had scenarios before where all of a sudden, you have a call with a client and the client steps off the call and the conversation carries on with your team afterwards talking about the client, and all of a sudden that Autopilot summary is now nicely distributed to the client, right? So you've got to take responsibility and you've got to implement some of these. You've got to make sure that you're aware of the technologies and the consequences of things going wrong, and make sure you put barriers in place.
Do you want to add anything, Roger?
Sure. So, yes, leadership is ultimately accountable, right? But you want it to be a joined vision, right? So you're going to train and equip on the different tools and technologies available. You have to go for it, right? There are going to be mistakes that will be made. AI will make mistakes just like people make mistakes. So you have to expect an acceptable amount of that to happen, and you can't punish a person for working within the structure that you've set forward. So I think organizations that are really innovative, they don't, hold people individually accountable for something that's a joint vision of the company. Train, equip, send them out there, support them in the different functional areas, and move forward as a team. Take the accountability as a team is the way I would look at it.
I just want to say one more thing, sorry. Because there was a presentation just before us from Elliston, I think it was, and the gentleman there said, let people choose the AI. I'd flip it around. I'd say let the business choose the AI, and then let the people MAFO with it, because that way you're in control of what's being put into your business, and you're at less risk of things going wrong.
Amazing. We're now on the closing of our panels. Unfortunately, we're not going to have more time to take any other questions. I just wanted maybe to just a very, very quick round of talking about, maybe the challenges the AI still has not solved, is where you see maybe you wish AI could solve for you in the future. Just quick round of one tip for everyone. Anas, you want to start? Yes.
One thing that AI can fix for me?
Yeah.
Oh, where do I start? It's a big list. I don't know. Come up with better use cases I can use AI for, maybe. That's a starting point, yeah.
Yes, we turn it around. Anastasios?
Well, I think I'm honest now, because I was about to say climate change.
Oh, climate change, I see, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, but joking aside, yeah. I think for me, the challenge is because we are tackling bigger and bigger problems, processing ridiculous amounts of data every day on our phones, computers, being distracted. I feel, I'm a bit locked up in this environment, and being a technologist at heart, it sounds weird, but I would say I would expect it to make things seamless, working in the background, and give me more time to, be human.
More time to be human. Andy?
Well, I was talking about the software side and using it right now. I find when it will get into the hardware side, and which is really robotics, automation. I've seen a video of the solar field being laid out by robots, which can go 24 hours. When we start seeing real buildings being made that way, like so much faster and more and quicker, like a Tesla factory does cars, I think I'm quite excited to see that changing how the construction process, delivery process, fundamentally.
Maybe Jason?
So for me, there's two primary ones. The one is, we've been using Google Workspace for many years, and many people on OneDrive. I wish there was an AI, like you could click the button and it would sort out all your historical files and put it into a structured data so AI could use it. Like, that would be amazing.
Practical, yeah.
Yeah, completely frustrating, because I think, AI is only as good as the data it can read. Secondly is that stock management, specifically for small items, so not warehouse management, but in the field, being able to go around, do stock takes of piping and valves and fittings, and being able to put proper intelligence around that type of sites, those types of sites would really be useful in terms of stock management.
Very practical. From my perspective, so what I want AI to do for us, it's good at turning unstructured data into structured data, but not yet to the level where we have 35 years of historical project data that's just not usable, right? So the data's there, but how do you glean some insights and analytics from it? So how do we apply it to a large data set of years and years of different complex types of projects? This would be very, very cool because it helps chart a course forward. Also, you have lessons learned, but you don't have all of that meaningful data from all of the things that have been done on those hundreds of projects in the past. So that's what I would like, that unstructured to structured and a large data set of previous projects.
Amazing. So now I'm going to close. So thank you, Catherine, for inspiring this last closing this morning. I was thinking how to close this panel. She said me this: I want AI to do my laundry and dishes so that I can do writing and art, not for AI to do my art and writing so I can do my laundry and dishes. So yes, I actually loved it. So I turned it around, and so this is my closing. I envision AI revolutionizing our construction processes, optimizing efficiency and cost effectiveness to deliver projects on time and under budget. Not for AI to overshadow our expertise, leaving us feeling like extras on our own construction show. So thank you very much for this amazing panel. And yes, I'll see you.